stuff. So that was great.
Right. I believe you worked with the Executioners on each of their albums, one capacity or another. What's that creative process like, having all those guys in the studio?
It was tough, dude. It was easy, but it was tough because there was, sometimes a little conflict. Everyone had different opinions, and mainly it was me, Rock Raider, and Sean C. And so Sean C and Rock Raider came up together like me and Rob. So a lot of times we would split, become teams, me and Rob, Raider and Sean, and we would just go get it done. And I had CJ in my corner. So our stuff could get engineered and sound, our music could sound perfect out the gate because he was so good at engineering stuff. And it was hard sometimes work, but we never really worked together. We were always all doing our own different things. And at the end, we would bring the music together, create a playlist, and that was the project.
Gotcha. You talked earlier about MF. How did you meet MF Grimm, and about your working relationship?
I met MF Grimm the same time I met Large Professor. Joe Fatal brought Grimm around, and he would come to the studio. And at one point in time, I was leaving work on the train on my way home, and Grimm got on the train, and I was like, "Yo, we just met." Like, it was the same week we met. We ran into each other on the train a couple of days later. And he's like, "Yo, what's going on?" And he was like, "Yeah, I was actually on my way to G-Rap's house to hang out with G-Rap." And we got to talking the whole ride, and he was like, "Yo, you know what, dude, I'm going to hang out with you." And he got off the train to my stop, and we hung together that whole night, man, and just clicked. And, he started going to the studio recording. Rob Swift was doing tracks, beats as well at the time. And we just started giving him a lot of tracks, man, and developed a really, really solid relationship. And then he got shot. And so at that point, I would go visit him all the time, and he got better. And I was like, "Yo, we're going to still do it." He had a crew that he ran with that would carry him around while he was in his wheelchair and things like that. I lived in Manhattan, like I said, so he lived uptown on the west side. I was on the east side. They would bring him to my house, drop him off and leave. And we would just go through my tracks, and he would just have books of lyrics, and he would just sit there finding lyrics to fit any track I had. It was like a battle between two of us. But we just got to work, man, and then we landed a single on Stretch Armstrong's label, Get Down, and Emotions was the B-side with him and B1. And, we were trying to get a deal, but everyone knew how skillful and how talented he was, but they were afraid of him. Like, Grimm was 50 Cent before 50 Cent. I'll just put it that way. Like, he was nothing to play with. He was a real street guy in this crew of street guys. And because of the Suge Knight stuff that was going on, I think labels were trying to avoid that at all costs. They wanted nothing to do with that. And no one would sign him, man. We couldn't get him a deal. But Grimm was probably one of the best people I worked with, man. He was like a Tupac, Biggie Smalls, and a G-Rap, like rolled up in one, dude. He was clever, avid reader, so his vocabulary, his diction was there. And he had to mesh with his music. He wasn't somebody that was every track he just would jump on. He would sit there and go through 100 songs until he found the perfect hook for that. So when I brought him in with G-Rap on a 456, G had a verse. He didn't have nothing else. And Grimm came right in. He goes in his knapsack, pulls his books out, and he's going through. He's like, "Call Butcher." I go in the room, and he's like, "Listen to this." And he's just like, "Yo, shit ain't never going to change." And I was like, "Oh, man, that's it right there." Like, it was like magic with that dude. Money on My Brain. I did the track in like 10 minutes. He just sat there going through his books. "Butcher, come with me. We're in the studio. What about this? Money on My motherfucking brain." He just would go through it. He knew how to match stuff up perfectly. And I'm like, and that was the last songs we recorded. I was like, "Yo, I should have brought you in for this whole project." Like, because he was so incredible with that. Like, he's a monster with that. And so, it was just unfortunate. But Sony did want to sign him, but Awanda Booth ended up leaving. And later on, she was like, "Butcher, I was going to give you your own production situation at Sony." But then she left and went to Relativity. Things just didn't happen, unfortunately. But lucky for Grimm, he got really into penning and writing, not just lyrics, but comics. And he signed on to Marvel, DC. He had his own comic book, The Chronicles of Percy Carey. He's still with them. I think he's still with Marvel. He was working with Stan Lee directly, going to the Comic-Con and all that stuff. So he's still active. And he releases, independent material. But we hadn't worked in years. We hadn't worked together. We talked, but we hadn't worked together in years and stuff.
Oh.
But that's my brother. That's my brother.
Yeah. You also linked up with a Percy P. How did that come about?
So I mentioned DJ E. Kim earlier. So DJ E. Kim was Percy P's DJ. And they were working on a project. And he was like, yo, you have any tracks for us? And I said, sure. I gave him something. I gave him a full disc. We were close. I just gave him the SB1200 disc. They loved it. They ran in the studio, recorded it. Nothing happened. And I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, my buddy Doug, and he had a record company labeled Table Turns. And we were in his basement one day, and I saw a CD, and I was like, oh, snap, you know Percy P? He was like, yeah, everybody knows Percy P. I was like, yeah, I didn't realize that. He's like, get out of it, dude. You're an old man. You don't know anything. So he's clowning me. And I look on the back, and he's playing it. He's playing the CD. And I was like, I produced that record. And he was like, what? I said, yeah, I produced that. And he said, yo, this is Percy's biggest record. I forgot what song it was. Lung Collapse, not Lung Collapse and lyrics. One of his joints. But he didn't have me credited. What's it called?
Don't Come Strapped?
Don't Come Strapped. Yeah, it was Don't Come Strapped. He didn't have me credited as the producer. He had some other guys, and I was like, what is this? So that week, I happened to go down to Fat Beats, and Percy was outside selling the CDs. And I was like, yo, Percy, I'm disappointed in you, bro. Like, what is that? I called E. Kim. E. Kim didn't know nothing about it. And he was like, yo, I haven't talked to Percy in a couple of years, bro. Like, I don't know anything about that. And when I told him what happened, he was angry because he wasn't credited either. And I was like, yo, what's going on here? And he was like, yo, I told them they need to contact you. The guy that ran the label, I knew him because he was a record dealer, and I used to buy records from him. He was based out of New Jersey. And he was like, yo, the dude said he got some money for you, and he's going to meet you. I said, okay. I said, Percy, that's not cool, though, dude. Like, I don't know who these guys are taking credit for what I did. We got to get that fixed. And so I personally went online and found all the YouTube videos with the song, and I contacted the so-called producer and told him, like, yo, I need you to fix that, bro. But the fans knew that he didn't do it. They knew I produced the record somehow. And I would see the comments, you didn't do that. Dr. Butcher produced that record. And, you know, but he agreed. He didn't beef for anything. He went and changed it. You know, he cleared it up and stuff. So it was all good. It was all good, but that was like the last time I saw Percy, you know. But that's how we connected. Yeah.
You reconnected with Coogee Rap and Roots of Evil. What was that chemistry like around that time?
So that was, I mentioned during 4, 5, 6, he had some issues going on. And, you know, his life got threatened, and there was some serious stuff in the streets going on. He ended up relocating to Arizona. He ran into a cat out there who, you know, wanted to do an album on an indie label. His man Johnny. He was working with a guy who was like a multi-talented producer, but he just didn't have a New York feel. But the cat was nice. And the dude, I forgot his name, but he told me his dad was like a member of a well-known R&B group from like the 80s, 70s, 80s and stuff. And I just can't think of who it was, but the dude was nice. And I heard some of the stuff they did. G would tell him some songs, and he would just totally replay it himself. He was a bad boy, but the feeling just wasn't there. And so I sent him a bunch of tracks, and G went crazy. He was like, yo, oh my God, dude, I can't stop writing. I need you out here. So he flew me out there. I brought CJ out there to mix the project. And the dude was there, you know, he just kind of sat in the back and helped us with like interludes and stuff. You know, we needed some extra playing. CJ plays too. I was doing more sampling at the time. But together we just got to work, man. I had all the tracks, and we just got to work, and things just came together. You know, then Foul Cats got released, and Flex was playing Foul Cats, and the streets went crazy because they had heard G rapping a while. Everybody thought he fell off. But with that song, I know Flex, when I first heard it, he played it like 5 times back to back. He just kept bombing it and playing it. And it was the first time I ever heard my music on the radio, dude. And I was in a car with a bunch of people. And I was like, oh, holy shit, my record's on the radio, finally, you know? But at that moment, I called G. He came to New York. He flew in quietly because the beef was still on. And Tito from the Fearless Four knew where the beef was, and he went and squashed the beef for him and got everything squared off. So G-Rap was able to move back to New York at that time. And then Raucus jumped in and gave him a $3 million deal for 2 albums, you know, a huge advance, like a $500,000 advance. And he was set. And when he got to the city, everybody wanted features. You know, dude was telling me how much money he made within like 4 months. I mean, almost $1 million. I was like, man, like he was rolling, dude. It was a great thing for him. And the album was well received. Unfortunately, the guy that owned the label, Johnny, he was, you know, he came to me. He was a rapper as well. He wanted some music. I gave it to him. He told me he did a song with, oh man, cat from Cypress Hills. He did a song with him. Cypress Hills dude, and he said it blew up on West Coast. And he's like, Butcher, they offer me label deals out here, man. We're straight. You're my guy, because I didn't charge him for the music. I gave him a crazy track, and they went in and killed it. And he's like, yo, this track is the hottest thing out here right now. I was like, oh, great, man. Good for you. Like, don't worry about it. We're good. He dies 2 weeks later from cancer. And he was a young dude, like in his late 20s, man.
Wow.
And, the project didn't, he was no longer there to move the project. But GVAP, I got the situation with Raucus. So it kind of fell to the wayside. But, going back, again, you go to YouTube and I look at all the comments and all the views. And a lot of people like, yo, this is GVAP's best album right here. Like, they love that project, and I talked to guys. I was just with Raekwon over the weekend from New Wu-Tang. And first thing he said, I was like, yeah, I met Ray at the time because GVAP was going to use him to do a feature together. But Ray wanted $30,000 and GVAP only had $15,000 in his budget. I said, yo, tell Ray I'll throw him 3 tracks for free to make up the variance, the other $15,000. And Ray said, yeah, dope, send the tracks. I sent him 15 records. He calls back and said, yo, we need to meet your man, Dr. Butcher, we need to meet him. So when I went back to New York, I met him and his manager. He wanted all the tracks. And I was like, yo, you got 3. What are we going to do for the other 12? Let's talk some numbers. And it was kind of like, well, this is my sophomore project. I think it'd be a good idea for you to just get on board. You know what I'm saying? I was like, yeah, I'm going to go cool with that. But, like, what are the numbers? Let's talk some paper. I'm just saying, it'd be a great idea for you to get on board. And that's where the conversation stopped. Like, we never got to talk money. They're like, this is not going to happen, bro. Like, I need some paper. You know what I'm saying? But I understood it. There was issues with RZA and their money, and they were trying to, hold on to their bread as well. You know what I'm saying? So I got it. But it didn't work out. GVAP was offended. He's like, yo, man, that's my dude. Y'all can't do that, man. So that song never took place. And but the project came out, and me and Ray talked about it briefly. He's a good dude, man. Like, it was cool seeing him interacting with the whole crowd there. It was like in a pizzeria. He was doing fight night. He was with his wife selling Wu-Tang stuff. And he was mad cool, man. I was really impressed to see how he would navigate amongst people, signing autographs, taking photos, and just chit-chatting with us and stuff. Good brother. And but it was a funny thing. It didn't happen, but it is what it is. Life goes on and stuff,
Right. Now, for that Raucus project, that was a bit of a fiasco, right? They wanted him to get producers like Pharrell, and what was going on around that time with the management and the powers that be at Raucus?
It was just chaotic, dude. I think they had Mos Def and all those guys over there, and the money was flying out the door. Mos Def, from what I hear, I don't know what the truth was, but he had like a $20,000 monthly stipend that would pay his rent and all this stuff, and I think they were just mismanaging the funds over there. They didn't have any money in the receivables, payables departments, and things like that. Money was just going out the door. And, the father, Rupert Murdoch, at some point decided to audit the books. And what he saw, he didn't like. And, he got on his son and said, shut it down now, stop the bleeding. And they shut it down. And the project, GVAP, once again, his project got caught in a whirlwind, died. Nothing ever happened with it. Just got released as an independent record. But Jarrett, the A&R at the time, it was Jarrett and Mike Haran was there. I didn't ever run into Mike in the studio, but I always saw Jarrett. Dudes were more geared towards the known producers. And me and CJ felt some type of way because you signed them based on stuff that we produced. But you didn't want to include us on this project, and G-Rap didn't stand up for us. So that was a little disheartening. But at the very end of the project, he calls me, and they found some music that I gave him, and he wanted one of the tracks. And I ended up going and recording this track. There was no money left. I did the track for $1. There was nothing left, but I still let it go because I had a bunch of material that was about to be commercially released. So in my mind, you know what? No one knows. I'm going to let it all come out. I'm affiliated with this dude. It makes sense. Just let everything drop at the same time, and it look like I'm very active, and, it just opens more doors. So I just took that route. It was cool. But the project didn't go anywhere.
What was that track? Gangsta, was that track?
Gangsta. Yep, you got it. Yep, Gangsta. You know more than me, dude. You know more than me.
you guys had a long, lengthy history of working together. Is this the point where you guys kind of call it quits?
Yeah, it was more of a personal situation that set off. Actually, after the Raucous situation fizzled, I happened to meet someone from Boston who was starting up an indie label. He was a young millionaire, and he had his own artist, but G Rap was his artist's favorite rapper. And he met Sugar Cuts, the young guy I was telling you about, and brought him to my crib. And he was like, "Yo, can we get G Rap to do a song with him?" I was like, "Well, let's call him and ask him." I just got him on the phone. He told him what he wanted. He's like, "Yeah, I'll do the feature. I want this amount," and the guy agreed to it. And they got off the phone. But while we were sitting there talking, I was like, "So what are you doing?" Like, trying to just pluck his brain and see what was going on. And he said, "Well, I'm about to start a label. This guy's gonna be my first artist, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Well, yo, how would you like to have Coogee Rap as your first artist?" And he didn't know anything about Coogee Rap. He was like a yuppie white kid from Boston. His parents were multimillionaires, things like that. He wasn't listening to rap, but he had the money. And his man was like, "Yo, what? You can make that happen?" I said, "Possibly. I can do some calls. I can call him back and talk to him." He said, "Well, if you do that, call me, get the numbers, see what we need to do, let's make it happen." So I talked to G. He told me what he wanted. I called the dude back. The dude was like, "Okay, let me call you back. Let me run some numbers." But he was really just talking to people that he knew. Within 2 days, he called me back. He said, "Yo, everybody told me if I let this opportunity go, that I'm a fool. So let's make this happen." And he agreed to everything. What G wanted. He brought it to him. They signed on an agreement. And I helped build the studio. Within the contract, he allowed like $15,000 to a home studio. So I went out and purchased all the gear. I set up a whisper room, bought him a Neumann 102 microphone and Pro Tools and all that. So the quality, man, sounds just like a real studio. He had one of the engineers come through and set everything up to get it right. He was like, "Man, I'm never going to the studio again. The vocals sound just like I'm in Unique Studio," because he had the right mic and it sounded perfect. But then things just kind of fizzled out. Some stuff happened with money. And he and I got into a little discrepancy, and we haven't ironed that out to this day. So we haven't talked in like 20-something years. But his baby's mother, Karen, that I told you about, the family's still tight. A lot of people around him, we're still tight. They're like, "Yo, y'all got to iron it out." Be like, "Yo, y'all got to work with the music." But it's more of a brotherly thing. Beyond the music, like I said, we like brothers. So for me, the music don't mean anything to me. You know what I'm saying? Until we get that situated and he has to step up, initiate that. Until that happens, nothing happens musically. You know what I'm saying? So maybe in time, we'll see. Large is like it's going to happen. I'm telling you, he needs it. It's going to happen. All right, we'll see. So, things are where they are. There's no beef. It just has to get resolved. I'll just put it that way.
Right. Catch us up to what Dr. Butcher has been up over recent years. I see video games, commercials. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. Doing video games with the Xecutioners and Apple commercials. And, once they disbanded me and Rob Swift, we always stay working. And, he had other situations he would bring me into, licensing music for movies or various things, and their own projects through Fat Beats. He's done several projects through Fat Beats. And I normally would jump in. The last project was the Odd Couples No Sympathy Symphony project. I produced pretty much the whole project. Me and CJ Moore worked on that together. And that was it. I'm working on stuff now. I'm going to do a project for DJ Eclipse, Hip Hop's Out of Control. He and I spoke. But I know he was working with Fat Beats, taking over. So nothing's really happened yet. There's been communication, but it's going to take place. He needs that. So I'm going to make that happen for him, and there's some other things brewing and stuff that, I would like to get done. And I'm still fully engaged, man. Like I never stopped. I'm just not out there. Like out here, I've been going to a lot of DJ events, hip hop events. And when cats, I was with Large, was out here a few weeks ago. When cats are like, "Yo, when you going back to New York?" I'm like, "I'm not. I live here." They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been in Dallas 20 years, but under the radar." You know what I'm saying? Like that was my intent to come here and just stay low. I didn't want to be seen or heard, and talking to Raekwon and Inspect the Deck, it's the same thing for them. It's like, "Yo, I love it here, man. Like the New York stuff was kind of wearing me out, man. I needed to get somewhere quiet." And so, I was like, "I feel you. I've been doing that for 20 years." So, but I love it. Things are going to come out soon. There's a lot of things on the table. I'm meeting a lot of local artists that are, really pushing hard to do stuff. So, yeah, going to make some stuff happen. A lot of connections coming up. some things are gonna happen. So
Very dope.
gotta just stay out.
Can you talk about your project from the vault?
The fault. So that's my man Demo, Demetrius. He goes by the rap name of Understanding. When I lived in the city working with Large and G-Rap and stuff, you know, he went to college with a close friend of mine, best friend. We all were best friends, like brothers and stuff. They went to King's College Seminary School. And so he got into rapping and stuff. He's a big Nas fan. And, you know, he would go out and do performances at churches and competitions and so forth. But I was like, yo, let me give you some tracks, you know, so you can stand out from the music aspect. And when he would come out, I said, actually record some vocals so you can ad-lib over top of your vocals and rap, and you'll have a backdrop in case the sound system is bad. You know, just stuff I picked up doing shows and stuff. This will help you in your performances. So I didn't have a mic. I just had headphones and my drum machines. I didn't have a studio. I would just play the track. He had the headphones, rapping into the headphones, and we recorded it. Well, he lost the recordings and recently regained them through an old laptop. He sent to the Geek Squad. They fixed it, and he realized he had all the music on his laptop. And he brought it to me. And so my band, a guy named Fish, he was the guy that put out, he was running Grimm's label. Grimm got into some issues. He had to go do some time. But he let Fish run his label with MF Doom. They did the project together, MF Grimm and MF Doom. And Fish ran that whole project, that label and stuff. So he was reformatting and building back up. He moved out to Long Island, and we reconnected after like 15 years. And he said, yo, I'm trying to do this again. You know, whatever any help you can offer me, I'll love it. And I said, well, I got some stuff, old material. And when he heard it, he was like, man, this would be perfect to launch the label, Mad Good Records. So we just put everything together. And Demo, man, he was so excited. You know, he does good in life. He has a career. He's a social worker for New York State. He's, you know, cashing out money to promote his own project. You know, Fish pressed everything up, cassettes and CDs and everything. So they're working together. It's very fun because it's something Demo's always wanted to do throughout his career, you know, have an actual release. And it's the first time. And normally I wouldn't let old music get out there because, you know, people tag you. And even with that, oh, you just did that? I was like, nah, man, that's 30 years old. Like, it's not new music. It's just, we found it. And he, you know, this guy, he's into that, so he wanted to release it. But because it was him and it was a Fish, the connection, I agreed to let them put it out, you know, and so that's what that is. But it's good, positive music, you know. A lot of people like it for that. You know, I recently did a radio interview, and they pulled that up and was playing one of the songs. And the guy that runs the show out here, he has like the longest standing hip hop show, 30 years or something in. He's about that. He doesn't like cussing and things like that. And he's like, man, I'm really vibing with this project right here, man. This brother's a good brother. I love this. So, you know, it's doing good. You know, Demo's just excited that people like to listen to his music, you know, so I'm happy for him. And that's what that kind of is right there.
No doubt. For those who may be wondering where to get that project, where is it available at?
Go to madgoodrecords.com. Madgoodrecords.com, and you'll see it there. And I think they're going to press up limited vinyls as well. We just did the cassettes. I know the CDs are available. You can stream it on all streaming platforms. But I know they're looking to do a limited vinyl run as well. So that's coming.
Any plans for any more unreleased gems that you got in the vault somewhere?
Yeah, so when Demo found his stuff, he also found a bunch of instrumental tracks that I had gave him that were never used. So Fish, who runs the label, you know, he wants to do some type of instrumental album, like unreleased music from that same era. We'll get to that. Like, I got Mikey D on deck that's going to release some material to him. You know, he came up with LL. They were like partners. And some other people, you know, I'm just trying to help him get his label going for him, you know, finding artists and doing production, and going to try to get that stuff facilitated while everything else is going on. So some things will be coming out this year. Yeah, we're definitely going to release some stuff.
No doubt. We'll definitely be on the lookout for those.
Yeah, definitely.
Opportunity. Before we get out of here, can you shout out your social media and where we can find Dr. Butcher moving forward?
Definitely on Instagram, I am Dr. Butchers, where you can generally meet me. But I'll be the first to tell you I'm very anti-social media. So like you know, you send me messages. I just happen to be going through like, oh man, there was a couple of things out there. I apologize, bro. Here's my number. Give me a call. You know how that is. But you know, and I have some production cats, the specialists. You know, we're all around everywhere, New York, Virginia. You know, little team of producers that are trying to. These cats are like battle beat battle champions. And so it's good for me because, you know, they're on their game and it helps me stay on par with what's going on currently. They're more to know, you know, what current dudes are doing. So, you know, we have a little niche there with them as well. You know, I mean, Jay Swift, Static, Funk Star, Ilian, Roswell. It's a host of us, man. J.R. Swift Jr., you know, he's working with Griselda Movement. You know, so dudes are doing a lot of stuff, man. My man Blackheart, Strez, you know, we got a little crew. And so, and then I got my own stuff. Me and my cousin, we have a situation we're doing called Rose and Cook. My mom name is Rose, his mother name is Cookie. Growing up, they were like sisters. And he and I are like brothers, you know, even though we're cousins, we're just like so tight. We felt like we would do something attributed to them, but we're called Rose and Cook. You know, people think it's one producer. So we're building on that as well. And just having fun, man. Like, you know, making really, really dope stuff, man. I can't wait for things to kind of start getting dropped, you know, as cats can see wherever it is. But my ears stay tuned to everything. Like I haven't lost anything, you know? So looking forward to it, bro.
Thank you so much for everything you've done for the culture. Before we get out of here, any last words for your supporters who have been checking for you from day one?
Man, I'm grateful. I'm thankful. You know, like you know, whenever I see that, man, I take it serious, you know, because I'm not someone who puts myself out there much. I'm like a ghost. And for dudes to be, you know, for some people, like that's the Lord, that they don't see me or hear from me much. But, you know, for people to reach out to me and have interest in my story, man, I'm really humbled by that. So thank you, man, for reaching out to me, man. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. That is the one and only Dr. Butcher. I am the Gerald Sin-seer, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much, Dr. Butcher.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
No doubt. Let's keep in touch.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much.
Peace, bro.
Peace.